One of the other databases that we're going to be using for writing project 2 is the Moth. Now, the Moth is a website that has a collection of different stories from different events. So some of them are videos, some of them are audio or podcast examples. They have this kind of place where it's meant for people to tell their stories. So with the Moth, it's a little bit different than the Dawn. Now, the Dawn focuses specifically on literacy experiences, but the Moth focuses on important moments in people's lives. And this is something that I think is really important for you to kind of think about as you connect to stories, but also how you can connect others' uh, narratives to your own. The Moth is something where we want to use those keywords and related keywords, and as we're going through and thinking about different things, what is it that we actually are trying to find? So we want to kind of search the Moth for similar experiences. Now, the keywords that I used in my map have a lot to do with Laura Ingalls Wilder's books, the television series that came from it, the teachers and the librarian and the context that are related to it, but also, my mom and her connection to the television show. So for me, one of those contexts was sitting down and every week watching a new episode of Little House on the Prairie with my mom, and it being kind of a place where she and I got to talk about topics, because I was reading the books and watching the TV show along with her, but also the books themselves covered really hard topics. And the TV show, the producer, Michael Landon, was someone who was really focused on bringing kind of important civil rights topics and sociocultural topics into the television show. Now, the TV and book stories aren't necessarily the same. They kind of followed similar themes, but they did very similar things. So maybe what I want to do is think about how television maybe has a connection as a context with other examples. So we want to go up here to this search bar. Let's click on the search icon, and I'm just going to type in television. All right, so with the Dawn, they give you a little bit more information. With the Moth, they give you very short kind of synopses. So tries to learn English. I learned things, but maybe not exactly the right thing. Nigerian man tells bold truth about live on television. So you want to kind of keep going until you find kind of a key phrase that you connect with. And there's so many different stories that I might connect with, but I want to look at the keywords that they mention here in the information for each of the episodes or each of the videos from the Moth. Now, what I want to kind of think about is talking to my kids about sex in the internet age. Okay, now this doesn't really have anything to do with television, right? It's talking about the internet. So they're a related context. So when I was a little kid, the internet was not available to the public yet. Um, I'm dating myself again. But what we want to kind of think about is this is something where I get to kind of talk about the perspective maybe of a parent to a child. Now, my mom and I talked about really kind of challenging things, especially in terms of um, colonialism and pioneering and things of that nature. We talked about racism and different things because of the TV show and because of the books. So this might be a story that I can connect to for my project. Uh, so we want to kind of have that idea. So we don't necessarily have the transcript from here, but as I went through and I was listening to this particular example, what I found is that the things that they were experiencing as father and children, so fathers and sons, I was experiencing with my mother, and kind of, how TV is showing me these scary things, how the books were showing me these very scary things, but we were helping each other kind of contextualize and understand our emotions with it. So for me, a source like this would be perfect. So you'll notice the tags have nothing to do with necessarily my original idea, my original agent on my map. But if I'm going through and I'm using this as an example, I can talk about how books and TV were kind of the place where parents and children could come together and talk about difficult things, and how maybe the internet is becoming that space. especially when we're in spaces right now, like with Black Lives Matter. Kids are being exposed to all of these very scary things. They're being exposed to and seeing how different people are responding, both positively and negatively, how racism is a big factor, how that affects them in their space, how they can ask for help or need help or should expect help, but also how, depending on their position within the situation, what it means to be of help, to hold people accountable, to learn more. So this is something where I could connect this very easily to my own understanding about how to understand scary things, how to understand the world and my place in it. So this would be a really powerful source to integrate into my project. Now for you, you want to play around with different ideas. So if you're going to be talking about a particular set of knowledge, so if you're going to talk about your nursing knowledge, if you're going to talk about your experiences learning how to do a specific profession, if you're talking about, your barriers to learning, use those, use different terms, think about the context and the situations, and play around with those search terms in the Moth, because that will be extremely powerful.